Hello everyone, I'm Маші Єфросиніної, Ukrainian journalist, and I am straight from the public forum of the NATO summit from YouTube studio, meeting with my guests. During these seconds, during these moments, President Zelensky is meeting all the members of allies, and I am meeting my guest. So, I don't know, maybe here is much more interesting. This is a joke, of course, but we'll see. Джеймс Аппатурай, Deputy Assistant Secretary General for Emerging Security Challenges. Joking about where is more interesting, I don't know, but where is more safe, maybe it's there, because I have never seen such a lot of security like there.
Well, NATO meetings, we usually have a lot of security, but now we're a little bit closer to Russia and to Belarus than we normally are. So our host country, Lithuania, has put up a lot of security.
A lot of security.
We feel safe. We are safe and we feel safe.
So, James, tell me, what role does cybersecurity play in NATO's strategy, and how does NATO address cyber threats?
So thanks for that question. And we have looked at, of course, what's happening in Ukraine. And it really illustrates how important cyber is. Some people look at cyber as something separate, you know, land, sea, air, cyber. But actually what we see in Ukraine is that cyber underpins everything. Because the cyber infrastructure works, people can communicate, they know what's happening, they know where to go, they know where their loved ones are, they can take money out of the bank. And military command and control works, and President Zelensky can talk to the people and can talk to us to get the weapons that Ukrainians need to fight with. It underpins everything. So we need to keep the infrastructure working for us and, of course, for Ukraine. We know that the Russians, for example, have conducted cyber attacks not just against Ukraine, but also against all of us, and they continue to do it, for example, against critical infrastructure, for example, against industrial
Are they
control.
strong in this? Are they good in this?
They're good. What Ukraine shows is you can defend effectively. And these are some of the lessons that we are taking on board. It takes a few things: good training, good equipment, up-to-date software, well-trained people, Ukraine has that, and crucially, industry support. Industry has helped keep Ukraine on its feet. We are trying to build now a stronger relationship with industry for ourselves, but I can tell you we are also helping industry support Ukraine.
Wow. How is NATO adapting to climate change and environmental changes? So I know that during this summit you didn't have enough time or enough opportunities to talk about this, but this is understandable. But I know that you pay a lot of attention to this topic.
So talking about something else that underpins everything, NATO is, of course, looking at the security implications of climate change. And I think we all recognize it's getting warmer, it's going to keep getting warmer. And what does that mean? It means sea levels are going to rise. It means our soldiers have to fight in places that are very hot. It means a lot of people are going to be moving and fighting over resources. It means the Arctic ice is going to melt, which means, and is melting, so that China and Russia, for example, are more active up there. So there are a huge number of implications for our armed forces. And one of the things that everybody can see right now, for example, in my country, Canada, is wildfires, and the army is being called out for one disaster after the other, and it's going like this. So we need to adapt. And so we're doing three things.
Wow.
Yeah, we're doing three things. One is to understand the implications of what's happening. So viewers can go on to the NATO website, and we've just published a big impact assessment, and we're going to update it every year. Second thing is we need to adapt our armed forces. New equipment, new training. We need to look at our naval facilities, which are on the coast, and they're going to be underwater, and our training facilities, which are going to be impossible because they're too hot. Our helicopters can't fly in the heat, so we have to change all that. And then the third thing we're trying to do is cut our greenhouse gas emissions. The military is a big emitter, so we are going to net zero by 2050 for NATO, and we've published now a methodology to assess how to do it, and we will get there by 2050. So understand, adapt, and mitigate our effect on climate change.
I'm not the first and not the second and not this 100th person who is telling you that nobody was expecting the war in Ukraine, like expecting like it was real. But going back to this war, awful and terroristic and very, very bloody, you know that the topic of environment is also very actual, because there are a lot of explosions, a lot of rockets, missiles, and you heard about the Kakhovka, and this is also the environmental catastrophes which you cannot predict. So maybe you have your plan of the defending the environmental, but do you have any predictions or maybe things that you cannot predict, and the percentage of them, like the amount, you also have to be ready to?
I think the first sort of understanding we have looking at the environmental impact of this war is terrible for the environment. And so we cannot sacrifice security for progress on climate change, meaning we cannot choose green tech. We have to pay for defense. And it goes beyond Ukraine. Russia is burning so much natural gas into the atmosphere every minute because they don't want to sell it to us. So they're just burning it off into the atmosphere. So all the savings that are being made in Europe to cut greenhouse gas emissions are negated by what Russia is just burning off. Just to give you an example. So the first lesson is we need peace to make progress on environment and climate.
Sure.
And Ukraine is learning that first and foremost. And the second is we need to build resilience and capacity for the unexpected, because the unexpected will come.
I want it to happen sooner, as soon as possible. Sorry.
We agree.
Yeah. You have a program, Science for Peace and Security. Ukraine is involved in it.
Yes.
No? Tell me how.
So our Science for Peace program is a program by which we have scientific cooperation between basically one or two NATO countries' scientists and a partner country scientists. Ukraine is the country with which we have the most practical cooperation in this program.
Really?
So 40% of all our programs are with Ukraine. Ukraine has great scientists, we have good scientists. So we have all kinds of collaborative programs to work together. So for example, we have worked together with NATO scientists and Ukrainian scientists on a program to be able to detect explosives at a distance. So if somebody walks into the Rome subway with a bomb in their backpack, these cameras and algorithms and sensors can detect it in a crowd, and then police can come and grab this one person. So imagine the positive security that that can bring in schools, in stadiums, and that program has been tested. So when I say in the Rome subway, we did it in the Rome subway, and it works. So we know it works. And this is a program that Ukraine has contributed to. We have dozens of programs every year under Science for Peace, and we are very, very happy with the cooperation that we have with Ukraine, and anybody can go online and look at it.
Fantastic.
We love it.
I'm happy to hear such things when Ukrainians are good in something and progressive in something. Actually, this is the thing when Putin hates us and was to be destroyed, that we are a very progressive nation. And talking about, again, this monster and people who are who defend him, who support him, you know, the percentage of people, of Russians who support him. Can this cybersecurity influence any way to the propaganda, to this information war? So I'm a journalist and I work with information, and I have a very big audience, and I had a lot of friends in Russia. I mean, like journalists, like actress, like public person. But when I tried to be vocal, to be the voice of Ukraine, to talk to them, everybody was like, because they are in their bubbles.
I think this is a huge problem, and it's going to get worse. I wish I could give you a positive answer. I mean, and you know this very well, but I was the NATO spokesman before, and I watched as Russia took control of the information space. And Russian strategic thinking is only partly about military. It's mostly about the mind and how to affect the mind. And certainly within Russia, they've created a version, a less good version of the great Chinese firewall. So it's very hard to break in.
But is it possible in any way?
In a limited way. So I think that's a first problem. I think the second problem is now with all of the new generative artificial intelligence tools, there is going to be so much disinformation produced without limit in volume that what we saw from Russian troll farms until now is going to be dwarfed by what we're about to see. Because you don't need one guy producing a story a day. We know that there's, for example, one site in Russia that's producing 35,000 stories a week. One site onto one platform, and they can do it targeted at me or at you. So there's a real challenge that we have with this information, and Russia, like China, has closed themselves off. Russians don't want to hear it, and to a certain extent they can't hear it because the Russian government, the Kremlin, has created this dome around them. So I'm afraid that change will have to come. This is my view. We have to keep communicating, but I think it's really important to talk to Russians outside of Russia, who then can talk to Russians inside of Russia.
But they have YouTube. Of course, social media are blocked, but they have YouTube. They can watch a lot of information, the truth, but they don't use it.
No, they don't. And this is why, I mean, personally, I am not convinced at all that it's all because they've been brainwashed and they don't have the right information. I think a lot of Russians support this war. I think they think the same way the Kremlin does, maybe to a greater or lesser extent.
Statistics shows this, everything social,
At worst, they're passive, but if you look at Russians outside of Russia, who have full access to information, many of them support this war too. So I don't think it's only an information issue. It's a political issue, and they support it.
What do you think, what is your personal cybersecurity challenge? Your personal, for you exactly, when you think that what is your challenge, what is it?
I think the most urgent cybersecurity challenge from my professional point of view is protecting our critical infrastructure and setting or helping the allies set standards to ensure that they do what's necessary to protect it. That's crucial. The second thing is what we already discussed, which is cyber-enabled disinformation. We spoke to some experts from Google DeepMind and other companies. Many of them say they expect that within 5 years, 90% of what's on the internet will be fake. That's from the experts who make this. So I think we have a massive challenge when it comes to our political resilience and people's understanding of what's true and what's not, and we are quite vulnerable as democracies. So from a personal point of view, that's what worries me the most.
You have a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can solve that one. Critical infrastructure, maybe. This one's going to be a societal effort to make resilient societies in a world of AI and cyber-enabled disinformation.
Wow. So people continue watching official YouTube channels, please.
Official channels. Very important.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to talk to you.